workshop today at the Leadership Wilmington. Study and coaching. It just plays so good. Joy, I did that for the magic. Yes.
Bring the magic. Bring the
magic. Guys, I'm gonna.
Threw them away. I couldn't remember them.
Yeah. I am gonna ask for change the agenda to Pledge of Allegiance. So, I mean, I can't just do it, I have to ask.
Oh, it's not on there?
So, but will you be ready to practice up, lead that?
I can do it.
I can ask.
I've been doing it since I was
Will
little.
you ever
All the words. Excuse me. Say what?
You right here.
You've been doing it too.
You know that she's a good friend of ours.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, you remember what happened and how many students you had, but we had this conversation last week.
Yeah. I'm reading it right now. Yeah.
I took a picture of he
You showed me
bear
it with the bear. I
and the
saw it.
principal.
I did. Yeah.
And I said that wasn't the bear.
Hey, I'm famous, I'm on the website.
That's all right.
You know, going to be famous in Nicholas.
No.
That's us. That's true.
Are you ready?
It's all about equity, Rachel. Rachel, it's equity. You treat everybody the same. That's a fair point.
What happened?
Those things over there, are they little thing you
No,
can
that's
do?
where the connect. God, we're putting a microphone.
All those things are.
Okay, so there's cables that are running for various microphones.
It's those were.
No, those are the lines that run through the
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my little.
I got my notes too.
So I'll make sure I say what I want to say.
Well, that's only, well, let's see. That would be like. 12 plus 1. Yeah. Pretty 40. Probably good, about 40.
I didn't even. How many students were found that were not really riding the bus? Saw it, they got those out. It was emailed today.
I wouldn't count on
About
newspaper reporting for accuracy.
70% of the numbers of riders who signed up were not riding the bus. And he said it was needed to call someone. You anticipated a flight rider, or just for the convenience of the parents who couldn't take it.
Yeah, thank you, Crystal, appreciate that. That's why I brought my notebook. I went back home to get it.
What did you stop?
Yes. run safety.
Now you gotta open it.
No, you think.
I'm thinking maybe he would help you. He's great at opening those. Else is it? 2 or 4 days. My team. What was it? I can't do it. So I want to do it. 125. Okay. So they can be t-shirt. Loves to give you parties. I like it. Now, but you can't. In front of everybody, you know, I'll look at like, well, so it's laughing. Since we all together, just so he called me back. He said I should have told him to see he canceled. Last one.
Oh, the last one.
Yes, they got him. Still get it. I didn't check it for 2 days.
Because some important ones are in there.
I saw you respond to it, so maybe it's a good excuse.
Oh, we done.
No, I mean, it's a good excuse. I just wish that. So, had that in the past. 50 years. I was looking at old TV and I said something about it. You're wrong. So, kids are, they love it.
Hey, you guys want one? Oh,
I'm not sitting in that corner.
thanks. It's, well, a lot of people have money on it, so I'm just kind of thinking, I don't know, I'm gonna be on the safe
Being
side.
announced is what he said to us. They might not.
I don't know if he's,
I just got my booster shot.
I'm gonna wait till fall.
I switched over and got the new one. Just 50 cc's versus 30,000. I got 1,000. Then, goes to the power. They even say if you have reactions to it.
Evening.
I
Sorry.
just
Oh, no, I'm sitting way over here. I already got permission to sit way over here. Oh, yeah, this is great. Much better. I actually like to sit in my car, but that's not an option. So, yeah. I got one. Yep, I brought one. That's fine. I'm good. That was nice. Nice of him to call and tell us how bad he was, but like, oh, gotcha. Hey, bud.
Okay, well, if that's the case, all right. All right.
He did.
Yeah. Good, but there was a couple
Nope.
It is what it is.
Yep. One district away.
I'm thinking.
Some things just cross out.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. That's all I got.
What time you got? 4:59.
I guess I'm not gonna move.
Or are you just scratching them across?
Actually,
Let me get my computer set up and we'll get ready to go. Guys, I'm just make sure I'm logged in, then we're gonna go. Okay, let's get rolling. 5 o'clock. Welcome to the special meeting of the new Hanover County Board of Education. This will be a town hall style format, so let's just go ahead and jump right in. Ms. Bowie, will you please call the roll?
Good evening, Stephanie Craybill.
Here.
Stephanie Walker.
Here.
Stephanie Adams.
Here.
Nelson Boyer.
Here.
Judy Justice.
Present.
Hugh McManus.
Present.
And Pete Wildebohr.
also present.
Okay, first order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Pete and Judy, and so I would like to,
Okay, sorry.
yeah, I would like to make it an agenda, a change to the agenda to include the Pledge of Allegiance.
Second.
Or just,
Yeah,
okay,
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
okay, all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that was to vote on adding it, and then next to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so that is happening. So next on the agenda is, let's go ahead and do the invocation first. So, I'm sorry, let me click on that so I can. We have with us tonight remotely Javi Mendoza, the pastor of the community engagement for Port City Church. Mr. Mendoza will be doing it in English and in Spanish, so it will be a 5-minuter instead of a 2.5-minuter. So I just wanted to let everybody know. Okay, so please rise.
And I serve as the pastor of community engagement at Port City Community Church. Thank you for allowing me to be with you as we celebrate National Hispanic Heritage Month. I will also be translating this prayer into Spanish after I'm done in English. Let us pray. Father, we pause to thank you for the blessings of life you have given us and how you knitted us to be in communion with one another. You have breathed into us breath of life, and today we take a moment to ask that you hear our prayers as we seek you and ask for your wisdom and favor upon the children and families in our community. We pray that you intercede in the areas where family reunification is needed. We ask that you provide for the children in the classrooms in tangible ways. We pray that their basic needs are met. We pray for the communities that don't have access to healthy, fresh foods, who might be in areas of town with a food desert. Lord, please make a way for the children and families to have what is needed so that they are able to be fully present in their classrooms. Lord, we pray for all of the school board members and their families. Give them the strength to do both their jobs and families' lives well. Thank you for the voice they hold, which has a significant impact on our children's day-to-day lives. Lord, we pray that all children from every background and culture are considered and cared for when decisions are being made. Lord, I pray for humility for each of them as they learn to navigate and seek first the needs of the children, especially those in rural areas where much more attention is needed. Father, let no one be unaccounted for. Father, may your will be done at all board meetings. Let these men and women be diligent with their decisions that they make. Allow them to hear stories and be moved and convicted in ways that they normally wouldn't be. Let love permeate all areas of their lives. Lord, we also pray for the teachers in our city. We are so thankful for all that they do to teach and pour into the lives of the young people that are in the classrooms. I pray for wisdom as they navigate difficult circumstances. I pray for patience and perseverance when things are tough. Give them joy in what they are doing. Give them creativity and excitement as we have begun a new school year. Lord, I pray that teachers and faculty at each school will stay unified and work towards a common goal. Thank you that you have gifted them. Call them to be right where they are. Help us come around our teachers and support them and love them. Amen. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Javi Mendoza y sirvo como uno de los pastores en la iglesia de Port City Community Church. Oremos. Padre, hacemos una pausa para agradecerte por las bendiciones de la vida que nos has dado y cómo nos tejiste para estar en comunión unos con otros. Padre, has respirado en nosotros el aliento de vida y hoy nos tomamos un momento para pedirle que escuche nuestras oraciones mientras lo buscamos y pidemos, que nos dé sabiduría y favor sobre los niños y las familias de nuestra comunidad. Oramos para que interceda en las áreas donde se necesite la reunificación familiar. Le pedimos que provea para los niños en los salones de manera tangible. Oramos para que sus necesidades básicas sean satisfechas. Oremos por las comunidades que no tienen acceso a alimentos frescos, saludables, que podrían estar en áreas de la ciudad con un desierto de alimentos. Señor, por favor, haz un camino para que los niños y las familias tengan lo que se necesite para que puedan estar plenamente presentes en sus salones de clase. Señor, oramos por todos los miembros de la Junta Escolar y sus familias. Dales la fuerza para hacer bien tanto su trabajo como su vida familiar. Gracias por la voz que tienen un impacto significativo en la vida de nuestros niños. Señor, oramos para que todos los niños de todos los orígenes y culturas sean considerados y cuidados cuando se tomen decisiones. Señor, oro por humildad para cada uno de ellos, a medida que aprendan a navegar y buscar primero las necesidades de los niños, especialmente aquellos en áreas rurales donde se necesita mucha más atención. Padre, que nadie sea desatenido. Padre, que tu voluntad se haga en todas las reuniones de la Junta, que estos hombres y mujeres sean diligentes con las decisiones que tomen. Permíteles escuchar historias y ser conmovidas y condenados de manera que normalmente no lo serían. Deja que el amor habite en todas las áreas de sus vidas. Señor, también oramos por las maestras y maestros de la ciudad. Estamos muy agradecidos por todo lo que hacen para enseñar y verte en las vidas de los jóvenes que están en los salones de clase. Oro por sabiduría mientras navegan por circunstancias difíciles. Oro por paciencia y perseverancia cuando las cosas sean difíciles. Dales alegría en todo lo que hagan. Señor, oro para que los maestros y los profesores de cada escuela permanezcan unidos y trabajen hacia una meta común. Gracias porque los has regalado estar justo donde están. Ayúdanos a acercarnos a nuestros maestros y apoyarlos y amarlos. En tu santo nombre precioso oramos. Amén.
And now Ms. Walker will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so now up for the next on our agenda is the town hall. And so I am going to turn it over to Josh Smith, our Chief Communications Officer, who will be our moderator again this time. So, Mr. Smith, take it away.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You already stole my introduction. So just
sorry.
a few housekeeping items as we get started. First, you'll notice timers on the screen. We have a lot of ground to cover and only 2 hours to do it, so I ask that everyone be mindful of the time so we can get to everyone's questions. We have 2 parts of this event. During the first, which will be the shortest, I'll be asking each board member a question derived from topics voted on by parents, students, staff, and community members. Board members, as last time, you'll have 3 minutes to respond, and after all 7 questions, you'll each have 1 minute to provide any additional comments. Part 2 will be me coming around with a microphone for you to ask questions directly to board members. When we get to that portion, I respectfully ask the audience to keep their questions concise, and for the sake of time, please no follow-up questions, but I'll certainly circle back around if time permits. For board members, as last time, please remember this is a town hall and not a political debate. And so with that, let's get started. We received more than 1,000 votes on a variety of topics, and these are the top 7. Student safety, calendar, curriculum and instruction, staff pay, school crowding, transportation, and staff morale. Last time we started at the far side of the dais, so tonight we'll do the reverse and just go straight down the line. So, Mr. Boyer, transportation. The district is experiencing bus transportation issues, especially in the county's north end. Both the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of operations gave reports during your last regular meeting. So, what would you like to see, and what can this board do to address the transportation issues that I imagine some folks are here tonight to ask about?
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening. Thank you to my fellow board members for giving of their time. You know, I think it's important to start with acknowledging that there is a problem. I know you guys have experienced it. I know that you're frustrated. I totally understand that. I know our administration is frustrated with it. You know, time in front of our teachers is the most important thing, in my opinion, that we have right now coming out of this pandemic. And so when buses are late, when our students are deprived of instructional time because of late buses, that's a problem. It's a safety problem. And I know our administration is working tirelessly to fix it. And I'll tell you some of the things that we're working on. You know, when we started this school year, we had 93 buses, and we had a demand that was at pre-COVID levels. We had 1,000 more people sign up for bus ridership. So over the next couple of weeks, what our administration is doing, what our transportation department is doing, is looking at who is actually riding the bus, making sure that they're going over their routes, they're making sure that people are actually on, and then they're going to recalibrate. And I know they're not going to rest until they get it done. There are a lot of things that we have done with regards to bus recruitment. You know, we give a $1,000 bonus to people who, in our system, who recommend a bus driver for us. We give a $1,000 bonus when somebody completes their first month of employment as a bus driver with New Hanover County Schools. But I can also speak as a state employee who has watched, year over year. I've never had a raise that kept pace with inflation. There's only so much the county can do. There was a recent article in an administrative magazine that was talking about $35 an hour would not be enough to solve the bus driver shortage in the United States. It's a really difficult job, and we really need, at this point, our state to step up and pay all of our state employees the wage that they deserve. New Hanover County cannot do it. The taxpayers have been stepping up in our county since 2008, and it's time that the state look at what they need to do to recruit, retain, and incentivize our highly qualified state employees. So I do know you guys are frustrated. I totally understand that, and I absolutely am convinced that as soon as these issues, as soon as we can figure out the issues with regards to ridership, this problem is going to be resolved. We're not going to rest until it's resolved. And by the way, if a child is scrubbed from a route, if they're not taking the bus because they're not satisfied with the bus schedule right now, they can come back when they are ready. I totally understand that. All you have to do is call your school, and they'll make sure that you have access to a bus.
Thank you, Mr. Boyer. Ms. Adams, curriculum and instruction. So the district started this year with a renewed focus on learning and the introduction of an instructional framework. But despite a strong start, recent data released by the state indicates that learning loss from the pandemic will take time to mitigate. What can and should the board do to ensure students, regardless of where they live, have access to the same quality education?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Smith. I think that, I've said it before, and I'll say it publicly again, I don't feel that the test scores are indicative of truly what goes on in our buildings. I think it's a one-day thing. That being said, we are not alone. Nationally, we are in the same place that everybody else is. We know that COVID has hurt our students. What I will say is that New Hanover County is addressing those needs. Overall, we're actually ahead of the state in a lot of different places right now. I believe K-1 literacy, we're ahead. I believe our graduation rate is a bit higher than the state level. Our ACT and work keys are ahead of the state level. So although we have gone backwards, because I do believe COVID had a lot to do with that, what's going to be important is moving forwards. And I have 100% belief in our administration that they are putting the pieces in place with letters training, with the new curriculum that had been integrated last year that we are becoming more comfortable with. And I think the wraparound services that we're providing at all of our schools is incredibly important, and I just, our teachers are working really hard. And I think one thing you'll keep hearing me say tonight, it's grace. And that's something I think that we all need to give ourselves more of. Work with your teachers. If you are unhappy with something that is happening in your child's classroom, or you have concerns with what's going on with the classroom, communicate with them. We are not on the ground. We are the board. And have a conversation. Your teachers give 110% of themselves every day to our children. I have a son in elementary school, and you have to talk with the people that are directly with your children. So that would be my first, I know it doesn't look good. I know that we are worried, but New Hanover County Schools is one of the best in the state. And we're going to continue to keep working until we are the best. The superintendent is driving towards that, and his administration and our schools are driving towards that. And I have faith in the ability and the professionalism of everyone that works in this district that we're going to get there. But it's going to take the work of the community, working with our teachers, and communicating in a way that how do we serve our students best.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. Mr. Wildeboer, student safety. You were quoted in the Port City Daily yesterday discussing the district's relationship with school resource officers, stating, quote, "I support and appreciate our law enforcement partners and feel that, unlike some other board members, they are crucial to keeping our schools safe and helping students see law enforcement officers in a positive light." What additional steps or solutions do you think this board should prioritize to ensure student safety?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. First off, I'd like to thank everyone for coming and those that are watching online. Student safety is paramount to what we do. It's very simple. I'm going to tell you a story because I love to tell stories. When I was a principal, I went to each and every classroom, welcomed the students from kindergarten all the way up to 5th grade, said, "It's great to have you here." And I asked them at the end, I gave them a little quiz. I said, "What is the number one thing that the state of North Carolina charges your teachers, your administrators with? What is our biggest job?" And of course, every hand would go up and I'd call on someone and they'd say, "It's to teach us, it's to make us learn." Well, actually the answer is to keep you safe. We've had a situation in our county just a year ago where there was a shooting. We've had a situation 2 counties away where there was a fatality on a campus. So I think we need to prioritize student safety. We've done some great things. This county, unlike a lot of other counties, the county I came from, every single person that comes into a building has to go through the office. You're forced into the office. We were actually, at the school I was leaving, we're working towards that, building a wall so that we could get people to go in there. But that's a great safety feature. But we need to look at internal and external problems, like bullying. We have to address bullying. I've heard from several people of one school that actually had, the kids are afraid to go to the bathroom. And that's horrible. We can't have that. I've actually reached out to that principal and we've talked and come up with some ideas. The idea of fingerprinting. We fingerprint in case you don't know, we fingerprint all of our new staff, but we look at possibly adding to that. Background checks, again, we do background checks. Student behavior, we're looking at that right now. I'm running out of time, but we're looking at that right now with the student, school improvement plan. So we have to look at that. We have to address that. External threats, we got to look at things like viable safety teams. We do have safety teams, but we need to empower those safety teams. We've got to make sure we have parents involved in that, and teachers and administrators, and also have some funding so that they can do things as needed. Active shooter drills, doors. We may not all know this, but for a lot of times in a lockdown situation, a teacher will have to go out and lock the door from the outside, putting them in harm's way. We don't want that to happen. So we want to continue to bring our community together, our parents, our teachers, our administrators, in high schools, the students. Let's hear the student voice and get their opinions on things so we can come together. I've actually been pushing for the superintendent to have a goal in this area because I think it's that important. And I'm going to continue to do that. I think working with our partners, our parent associations, and hosting things like internet safety seminars, neighborhood safety seminars with our law enforcement. So just again, it's all about educating our students to the best of our ability, but to do that, they need to feel safe.
Thank you, Mr. Wildeboer. Ms. Crable, school crowding. Some of our traditional high schools are either at or beyond student capacity. This can affect everything from class size to transportation to school resources. What does overcrowding look like from your perspective, and how can the board help address this issue?
Well, I was surprised when I saw that list. I didn't realize overcrowding was so high up on the list. So I asked for a report of our over and under. And it appears that in our elementary schools, there's only 6 of our schools that are over capacity. And the highest over capacity is by 64. Our high schools actually, Laney is over by 273. Ashley is over by 85. And Hoggard is over by 312, and the other big one, I can't see it right at the top of my head, but so we are over capacity. But what the thing is, we have this bubble that started it started a while ago, but it's culminating with our 10th graders. And those students have been following us through the school system, and so all the way through. So in 3 years, our high schools will even out. Trask Middle School is the only middle school that is over capacity, and it's over capacity by 19. So what we're planning is the district is looking at always trying to use the facilities that we have. We want to avoid at all costs having to do redistricting with that. So we have to look at the land that we have. There's not much land available left for us to buy land. So we have to be able to build additions and add extra seats where they are necessary. The construction costs have skyrocketed, so we have to also be cognizant of that when we're trying to figure out, how best to add those seats. Our community is just really densely populated, and there's no place to put schools in a lot of these densely populated areas. So my biggest thing is that I don't want to see us have to redistrict with that. So we have to kind of look around. And make our schools bigger. One thing that is still on the books is that we are looking to still make Trask a 9th grade center for Laney High School and make a new middle school, build a new middle school out on the campus of CTEC. So that is a couple years, down the road, but that is still on the books. And we're looking to expand our enrollment at our specialty high schools, which will alleviate some of the overcrowding at some of our traditional high schools.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Walker, staff pay. In 2021, our teacher supplements were made the highest in the state of North Carolina. But that same pay increase did not apply to our staff who are not certified classroom teachers. You, of course, recall the salary study and its recommendations. But now in 2022 and after budget season, what actions would you like to see this board take regarding pay for all NHCS employees?
Okay, I think it's funny I got this question. I think I was one of the only people to vote against the budget this year, but thank you for the question, Josh. I want to start by saying it really isn't too late, but I believe our staff deserve a livable wage. The data showed us what we needed to do, and the staff told us what they needed. We had an opportunity to make sure that we in a majority voted to do that. That obviously didn't happen. Unfortunately, there is a commission and some others had the chance to show that this was a budget priority. And we know, and they should know, that the state has been devaluing public education and teachers for a long time, and staff. But that if we wanted to, be a top district in the state, which we can, we are one of the wealthiest counties in the state, we could do it. By showing it that it's a budget priority is one of the main ways we can do that, and listening to what they were saying. We are, let's see. So we know that if we are one of the best public school districts in the state, we're going to attract commerce, and it's just going to be a win-win situation. We had a big hospital sale, and I know I keep beating that dead horse, but I feel like that was one of the promises that was made in order to do that. And I feel like we did have an opportunity to negotiate that, but that got kind of, I don't know, I shouldn't use that word, but so funding the education system is the right thing to do. Teachers and staff are the backbone of this district. They should be compensated fairly. In the very least, they should be able to afford to live here, from teachers to assistants to bus drivers and custodians, up and down the chain. They are the first and the last contacts for our children in the school day, and they are very important. So I know that I was one of the dissenters on the budget. If I had the chance, and like I said, it's not too late, we could turn around and ask for more money. I don't think that's going to happen this year. But if going forward, I think we need to listen to our staff when they come to tell us what they need. And we also need to make them a priority, like I said, and we also should vote in unison on that. Make it a budget priority. And I think that if we show that, that will help them with my staff morale as well.
Thank you, Ms. Walker. Mr. McManus, calendar. You're smack in the middle of the current discussion on school calendars and whether you as a board should take a fairly unprecedented step in changing this year, the 2022-2023 calendar. What would you like to see happen with this calendar and why?
Well, let me be brief, but
be as specific as I possibly can. When the 22-23 calendar was presented to the board, I think I speak for the board, we had not heard a complaint. And the probability of that happening was very weak because the parents and the students had not gone to school, so they probably were not and had not received the information from the schools resulting in the calendar. Then we received tons of emails, and we were approached. I can speak for myself. I think a lot of y'all were copied on the same emails. They were asking questions. I felt it was important when we arrived at that point in the board that we take more time to discuss it. I don't think we're ever doing the wrong thing by taking more time to discuss something. I didn't say to approve it or disapprove it or change it, but I did say to discuss it. And we did. According to the 4 meetings that the calendar committee held, on the 3rd meeting, which was the 21st of October, it is written in an assembly, which are the notes from the meetings. Quote, the committee voted for first semester to end in December. By seeing that, it made it easier for me to say we need to discuss it, find out why that was at the calendar committee up through the 3rd meeting, but it was not in the 4th meeting. We still need more discussion. The other night at the meeting, which I've said numerous times, so I don't mind saying it again, we don't play well after we sit here for a long time. I think it was the right decision, and I appreciate the board's support that we gave that back to the calendar committee. That's who was issued the responsibility of making a recommendation, and they may make the same recommendation that didn't come forth, or they may not. But I think it's important if we're going to select a committee and you're going to put teachers and staff members and administrators from the central office as well as the high schools, it's important that we listen to what they say. And they are meeting on the 30th, my understanding, of September, the original 22-23 calendar committee. I look forward to the results of the meeting to see what they say, what they recommend, or leave it as is. But I think it's important that we take more time to address it, because you must understand, when we don't answer, this is one of those occasions where we can talk right to you. When we don't answer you, then we become a topic of discussion. We don't listen, we don't respond. And we can't always respond as we'd like to, but I felt personally that it was worth another review.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Finally, Ms. Justice, staff morale. You sit on the district's Culture and Climate Task Force and have been vocal about low staff morale. What measures would you like to see taken to address staff morale? And do you think the public actions and behavior of this board itself has any role or responsibility on morale, be it positive or negative?
Ms. Justice, could you hold just one second?
So sorry, guys. We're trying to keep it off so that people can hear. Excuse me, I've got it. Yes, there is a problem with staff morale. It's been
What I was telling you is that they're having a hard time hearing you, and so he came out to...
It's because I had the sound off. I accidentally turned it on. Thank you. I was trying to give them, and my time goes, of course. Problem with staff morale, for over a decade now, the money coming from the state has been cut drastically in all public schools in the state, and it's been expected for the counties to make up the difference. That in itself causes a huge problem locally and statewide. The biggest problem, though, is with our staff, because when you keep cutting education monies, especially to our staff, they are going to get extremely discouraged when they see other professionals making decent livings around them, and their salaries and wages are getting cut. Now, the problem with morale, it's not just that by far. It's not just a salary. It has to do with working conditions. It has to do with resources. We're the 48th in the country as far as resources to our schools, guys. We're $3,000 below the national average for teachers' salaries. That's teachers' salaries. Everybody in the building is extremely important. When I started off, I said the students are the most important people in these buildings. You know who's the most important people in the buildings? The staff and the students. You can't separate the two. In order for the students to be successful, the staff has to be successful. And right now, they are underpaid, under-resourced, and overworked. Locally, I'm honest here, they don't feel like they're being listened to. We had a survey last year that said very clearly from the staff that they have got problems and people aren't listening to them. I'm listening to them, a lot of people are listening to them. I asked for this task force, which has only met twice, by the way, last fall. We had the climate survey that showed it was needed, and I don't feel it's been properly addressed yet. As far as blaming it on the board, there's 7 of us up here. All 7 of us have to have the effort and push to address what's going on with our schools and especially our staff. We should be supporting them, not working against them. We should be listening to them, and they don't feel listened to. I listen to them. I know people up here listen to them, but we need to listen more. Now, I'm running out of time because I had 30 seconds, which somebody decided to take away.
Ma'am, please take an additional 30 seconds.
Thank you very much. That, I think, is absolutely the number one issue here because we're losing teachers in droves. We've got over 300, I think it's around 300 new teachers, and a lot of them are brand new teachers. You know what that does in a building? In the past, if you had school-wide, instead of having that number out 1,600 teachers, you maybe had 30 or 40 new teachers. You've got hundreds now. They need support. Teachers are expected to stay after school for all these extra mandatory workshops and things like this that should be done in a different way, and they keep saying it, and people aren't listening to them. I'm listening to them. Our leadership in the schools, and I'm not talking about us now, need to listen to them. And I can honestly say, across the board, everything I'm hearing, they don't feel like they're listened to. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. Russell, if you could set 1 minute on the timer, and board members, like we did last time, I'm going to go back down the line. You have 1 minute. You can take the opportunity to add additional context or respond, and then once we're done, we'll come over to the audience for questions. So 1 minute, Mr. Boyer.
Yeah, thanks. Just wanted to comment really quick on 2 pieces. First, on mental health. We don't like to talk about it. It's certainly not as dramatic as some of the horrific school shootings that we see across the country, but the number 2 cause of death among children is suicide. And I think it's really important when we talk about keeping our students safe that we recognize the harms that befall them. And we have put in place things like mental health first aid training in this district. We have what clinics on site. I just was at a Coastal Horizons the other day where they said what they see more than anything is increases in children in generalized anxiety disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder. And it's really imperative as we move forward, whoever's on this board, that remains a focus front of mind because it is out there and we need to protect our children from it. With regards to teacher pay, I'm in agreement with everything that's said, except that I think that it's time for the taxpayers of New Hanover County to recognize that they have paid their fair share and then some with regards to our education system, and the state really needs to kick in. And to that end, one thing I'd like to do if I am reelected to a second term is to work with the boards across the state to lobby the General Assembly to make sure that we can get our teachers
Thank you,
paid.
sir. Thank you. Reset. Ms. Adams, please.
I'm on my way out, and so I wish all of you luck that continue and those that potentially are coming onto the board. And I just want to say, as the beginning of the year, we're a month in, thank you to everyone that has kicked off the school year on a positive note. I've talked to plenty of teachers, students, and parents at this point, and it's felt normal, is what I keep hearing, and how good it feels to be back in the building, to be volunteering again, to see the faces of our children. And so that took a momentous push from a lot of people. And I just want to say thank you to everybody that's come in the first month. Have there been some rough patches? Absolutely. It's part of school. It's part of what happens as we grow and morph into new things. But just thank you for all the work that's gone on, and look forward to a very successful 2022-23.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wildeboer.
All right, thank you again. I do want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. I think this avenue is a great ability for us to talk back and forth. I was talking about that the other day, that it's a lot of people say, well, you guys just sit up there during the cold audience and, vegetate. And we don't. We take notes. We try to listen to people. We try to, there's people I've actually responded to. So I think that's important to say. Also want to talk a little bit about the academic piece. We didn't do great. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh yeah, we were wonderful. My biggest concern is the fact of, is the schools that didn't make growth. We had some schools that did not do all that well. They were D or F schools. And to Ms. Adams' point, that was that day, that was exactly what we looked at for their performance, their proficiency, but they made growth, which means to me they're going in the right direction. I'm not going to call out schools, but there was one elementary school. I met with the principal this week, and I said, hey, yes, you were a D school, but you were moving in the right direction. And they exceeded growth. They didn't make growth. They expected growth. They exceeded. And that's what we need to do and see across the board for all our schools to exceed growth.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Crable.
Yes, I have two different areas that I'm going to run right through. So I just didn't want anybody to leave here thinking that we did not have safety as one of our goals. It is actually goal number 2 in our strategic plan. So I would ask you all to go there and look at that. Every one of our schools has a safety committee, and they have to submit their school safety plans to the Department of Instruction Crisis Management Center, and we have all been submitted. Our safety directors, our executive director, and our regular director, they review all those safety plans prior to those. They do have drills at the schools, and all of our safety teams have training. I wanted to just throw out there a couple things that we are doing to address staff morale. That we have an employee of the month. We have added a work day at the end of each 9 weeks. We have added incentive pay to the teachers that are at lower performing schools, and the opportunity to take advantage of scholarships. We have a superintendent advisory who sends out minutes so everybody gets a chance to see. And our task force did just recently meet in the spring with Mr. McManus and Ms. Justice.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Walker, please.
Okay, I'm just going to cover a few things. I really hope we can work this calendar out. I think it's the right thing to do. I think all the things that I have looked at as far as different calendars, we didn't get to see the drafts that were referenced earlier, but I think that they can be worked out, and they should if it's what's best for the high school students. I want to say we do have a great school district. I grew up in this district. I know that it is, but it could be so much better if we make it a priority, and I don't mean just money. But, we do have some low-performing schools that we really do need to pay attention to for the sake of the students. But as far as morale is concerned, I'm hearing some disturbing things, and I hope they stop, because I feel like, they should be addressed one by one, but we should never disparage staff that come and help their students here. I just think it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong message, and it's not good for morale at all. It actually just makes people feel like they are not welcome.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. McManus.
I don't know how many of you know, there's no land left in New Hanover County to really build a school. The only development that I'm aware of, please correct me if I'm wrong, was River Road developers, and they gave us 35 acres, I think. We're trying to decide what high school we'll build or elementary school we'll build there. All of us will probably be gone by then. The price has gone, if I remember the earlier quote was 35 million, it's gone up to 60 or 70 minimum. So, hey, we don't have any green areas, so we either go up or out, which is construction cost, if you find someone who will do the construction. Number 2, the county commissioners, I hope that what green land is left, that they will require the development as we build 500 or 670 houses, that they will require a certain amount of acres set aside for school. Number 2, Mr. Wilbur, I love you, but did I hear you correctly when you said, unlike some board members, I support SROs?
That's a cliffhanger, but that's time, sir. And Ms. Justice, please.
Okay. Wow. The schools are amazing. I have been in them this year, and I am so happy to see things return to the way that it was intended to, as far as working together to support our children's education, and that's what our staff wants to do more than anything else, and that's what the kids want to be there for. I think, in fact, if anything, I've seen more positive behavior than I have in the past, just because people are so happy to be around each other together and getting into the education groove, as you call it. But, you know, while that is going on, the public needs to also support those teachers in those buildings. That's another thing I didn't mention about morale. But there's been an awful lot of attacks publicly, across the nation, in fact, on our teachers. Not just on our teachers, but other staff too, but the teachers are like the ones at the head. You guys got to see how hard they work and how dedicated they are. Teachers are there for the kids. They devote their lives to it. They work 60, 80, even more hours a week. You wouldn't believe the sacrifices they make. So thank you, every one of our staff, not just the teachers, but everybody that devotes themselves to our children's education.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. All right, dear audience, it's over to you. There's no rhyme or reason here. Please raise your hands. I'll make our way around. As last time, I don't intend to give up the microphone. If you grab at it, we may share a tender moment, and I'll hold on to it, but I don't know if I can get to everyone. We're going to revert back to a 3-minute timer just to kind of keep us on track, but these aren't Robert's rules. These are Josh's rules, and I'm making them up as I go, so we'll see what happens. So no rhyme or reason. We're just going to start right here, ma'am.
Start with me. Okay. Are you going to hold it? Okay. Well, I hate to do this, but I need to go to something that Ms. Adams said and something that Ms. Walker said regarding the schools and the fact that our district is one of the best school districts in the state. And Ms. Walker said that. Ms. Adams said the graduation rate is ahead of the state level. But I'm wondering, how can we be one of the best in the state and ahead of the level of other schools within the state when we have kids that are graduating from school that can't read? We have kids that are graduating from school that are not ready to go to college or get a job. We got kids in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade that are not reading at their level. How can we be the best in the state?
And board members, we can do the same as last time. You can raise your hand if you're willing, or we'll go down the line. Ms. Walker.
Well, I say, because my name is Rob, I didn't say we were best in the state. I said we could be. And I also said that no, I didn't. No, I said we could be. I'm not saying that we are. No, I mean, I did not say that because I know that we have a lot of work to do. So I wouldn't have said that. But you're correct, and I did make reference to that in my last comment. It was that we have work to do, and we really do need to be paying attention to some of the lower performing schools, and we need to give them attention that they need. And that includes the exclusion discussion, and it includes the suspension discussion. So.
Mr. Whittleborough.
And if I could add, I've seen some turnaround schools where schools are low performing and they turn around. And one of the biggest things is literacy. I mean, we heard the other night where the calendar committee was actually taking some of the funds and repurposing them to get more literacy. I can't speak tonight, but literacy thing, training. Yeah, no, not training. Manipulatives, that's the word I couldn't come up with, sorry. Manipulatives in the classroom for the students. That's what we need to do. And I'm not saying we want to forget about our high schools, but we need to start at the bottom with as you said, with the little ones that can't, that struggle to read. There's been studies after studies done. 3rd grade, if students are not reading on grade level by 3rd grade, they struggle the rest of their careers. So, am I done?
No, you're done. I'm going to try to get to a few folks.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I think it's vital. That I'm not saying we want to forget about our middle schools or our high schools because they are super, super important to us as well. But that is a basics. We want to start with that literacy program in the elementary schools so that the students can do well there and can love learning and can continue through their whole education in that manner.
Thanks, sir. Ms. Crable?
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that the district has adopted a literacy plan that is required by the General Assembly, and each school has developed their own literacy plan in order to meet the district's goals. And as we heard at our special meeting last time when we were talking about the letters training, that if we do too much training, then if we do too much moving around, then we won't have the money to do those manipulatives for foundation and letters that we already have. So that's a priority.
Okay, Ms. Justice.
All right, I sort of object to this, the referring to the calendar committee's discussion, considering these manipulatives and other materials for the training. That money can be, we've got ESSER funds, over $50,000 sitting in the bank. It's a matter of what the district leadership decides to allot this money for. And we should, number one, and we should have learned this during the pandemic, the number one and most important way that children learn is with people, not with necessarily manipulatives, not with necessarily through computer programs. So we should put that as a priority, supporting our staff, allowing them training and time. And as far as, I want the manipulatives, but I think that those pots of money, to use, saying that if we put it into subs and things like that for the staff, is setting the staff up against learning for kids, and that's really not fair, and that's not true, in my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. I'm going to go this side, and then the middle, and we'll just see how that works. So anything over here on this side? Any question?
Hello, how's everyone? In 2018, I moved to Wilmington, and my third grader went to Wrightsville Beach Elementary. He came from a school where he was in the minority. He was one of 2 black kids in his class at Wrightsville Beach Elementary. Sorry. He was bullied from the first week, and I had a lot of meetings with the principal. It culminated in him being choked on the playground in a game of slave and master.
What?
I did not hear from the school, but another child was so traumatized that his mother called me. I then filed a complaint with the superintendent's office. There were fewer incidents, but no real change. I requested that my child be transferred to a more diverse school after first making recommendations at Wrightsville Beach Elementary to diversify the staff and include a Black History Month program. All the suggestions that I made were denied. I was told that I should use my job title and my education to convince the community that I belong there. Oh. I refuse to do that because I feel that all children deserve to feel safe and welcome in their school environment. I ended up moving my child to private school reluctantly because of the risk to my 8-year-old, to his physical and emotional health. He was emotionally scarred. There's been a lot of talk about equity in the schools. So how do we diversify these well-resourced schools if we're not going to make all schools equitable so that other children do not have to go through the same type of situation?
Ms. Adams, let's start with you, please.
Thank you for sharing that story, and I'm sorry. I feel the emotion and my heart breaks for you. I don't have the right answer. What I will tell you is that as a district, this board has put equity as a top tier priority. I think that by the social emotional learning, where we're learning about each other's emotions and respecting people for who they are and where they come from, that's a start. With the addition of curriculum around 1898, with the conversations that we have around Black History Month, our schools are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. I think that the more we are trying to talk about diverse perspectives in our schools, that is where it starts. There is a lot more work to be done. And I said it during the redistricting conversations, and I will say it again, our community has to be ready and willing to have those conversations. And not everybody is, in my opinion. And I'm sorry that happened, and I'm sorry that we lost your child, and if there is a way that we can make that right, bring him back in somewhere, and I hope he is happy and successful where he is, but if there's any way that we can change the circumstances for that, I know that we would like that opportunity.
Ms. Justice.
I am so sorry. I am very sorry. I can't even express it. There has been a culture in New Hanover County schools for literally decades, I've been here since the early 90s, that has allowed these kinds of behaviors to occur blatantly. And then when you went, and now I'm not saying now, I'm talking because we're in 2022, but for decades, if you went to try to get your help for your child that was in a similar circumstance, it was buried. You're, in a sense, brave enough to come out and speak here. Thank you for doing that, because in the past, in the past, parents were retaliated against, and it's a fact, if you look at our history. Staff, when they reported it, at times they were retaliated against. Now, since I came on the board in 2018, we've changed a lot. People are being held accountable for other things, but this is one thing that definitely we need to focus on now too, because I'm still hearing reports of things that should not be taking place, that are taking place. And that's up to us as a board to be open, to listen, and act on it when we hear these kinds of concerns. Because I know as a board member, I hear things, I pass them on, and then it disappears. Nothing happens. Nobody addresses stuff. That's got to stop. And we as board members need, not just one or two of us or three of us up here, when we hear these things and we pass them on and it disappears, all of us need to say something about it, because that's our job. You know that? And I wish your son luck. I hope at some point in the future, more than luck, I want him to do well. I want him to feel that he can come back here and do well, okay? And that's one thing that I'm working for, and I know that the board should be working for, and we have in a way since 2018, because you'll notice that a lot of the people that would allow this kind of behavior to occur are no longer here, and I think bringing the public's awareness to it is one of the reasons that they're gone. Okay.
Let's go in the middle somewhere. Yeah.
I'd like to give a little context, so I'm just going to read this so that you guys can understand what I'm asking and why. Beginning this school year, New Hanover County Schools adopted a new practice during IEP meetings based on the guidance of Tharrington Smith. New Hanover County Schools has now prohibited parents from participating in the provision of FAPE, Free Appropriate Public Education, as related to the prior written notice. The prior written notice is a legal document that outlines everything New Hanover County Schools will do to provide a child with FAPE. It documents every request a parent has made and the district's decision to approve or reject the request. So, if I ask that New Hanover County Schools not seclude my child and use proactive strategies instead, New Hanover County Schools says no, this must be documented in the prior written notice with an explanation of why. Up until this year, the prior written notice was reviewed with the entire team at the end of the IEP meeting, allowing everyone, including parents, to leave with a clear understanding of what was discussed and agreed upon. Parents were given a copy and were given the opportunity to sign the document. This is best practice, and it is standard practice across the districts in North Carolina. Now, New Hanover County Schools has prohibited parents from being part of that process, and parent requests to participate are being denied in IEP meetings. This creates an adversarial environment, because it breeds distrust and secrecy, as New Hanover County School now creates the document behind closed doors. It pits parents and staff against one another during a meeting where they should be working collaboratively. So I would like to hear from each of the board members regarding their thoughts on parent participation in their child's education. Do you feel that New Hanover County Schools should make every attempt to foster collaboration, unity, transparency, and trust with parents, particularly in IEP meetings? And finally, if Tharrington Smith is recommending guidance that creates distrust and discord within the district, should that practice be reviewed?
Ms. Walker.
I feel like I can speak a little bit to this because I had a child in our district too. I know how important IEP meetings are, and I think it should be a collaborative effort. I think the schools and the parents should work together to find out the best plan that makes each child successful. So I don't know what's happening there, but if it's something that we should be doing or should not be doing, I mean, I think I had read an email that you had sent about that and how we need to make sure that we're doing things according to the law. And as far as IEP meetings, it absolutely is a collaborative effect. My own experience in our district, of course, mind you, this was a long time ago, but was I often left feeling that way as well, like that I wasn't listened to as a parent, and that I didn't know my child. And I feel like that should never be the case, because if we want our children to be successful, we have to work together. So I'm not sure if I answered your question, but I think that if we're not doing something right, we should fix it.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Boyer?
Yeah, absolutely, we should be working with our parents in any way that we can, in every circumstance, 100%. With regards to the specifics of the change, I can't speak to it. I don't know why that change was made. I don't know the circumstances behind it. What I can say is that in my time in New Hanover County Schools on this board, I have seen an effort by every entity, from the school level to the administration, to do what's best for kids. And it's not necessarily always clear what that is. I understand that there are some frustrations and some concerns, and I think that's great. I think it's important that parents are voicing those and bringing those forward. But with regards to the specific recommendation, I know I wasn't involved. I don't think any member of the board would be involved in something like that.
And Mr. Wildebohr.
I also had a child. First off, I want to thank you for bringing this up, because I also had a child at an IEP in New Hanover County Schools, and I think it is vital that our parents are a big part of that conversation. Let me make sure I understand you. That basically the prior written notice is no longer it's handed to you and that's it.
So the prior written notice is no longer allowed to be talked about within the IEP meeting. So in the past, we would discuss it as a team. It would be finalized, it would be printed, it would be given to the parent. Everyone knew exactly what we had agreed upon. Now it is being done after the meeting, and parents will get it up to 3 days later.
So just sent home in an envelope or something.
I got it by an email, and it means that we don't have the opportunity as parents to clarify the request that we made and make sure that it's documented properly. So there's definitely concerns about accuracy with that.
Well, and again, just to finish my answer to that, I think we should definitely review it, because like I said, I think we need to have what we're doing right now. We need to have community conversations, obviously not about your child, but in those situations, parents should have a voice for sure. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
The news, I don't think it has been made clear to the entire public that this change has been made. I don't think we fully understand why it happened suddenly this year.
Board members, let's circle back if we have time, but I want to get to everyone's question.
Ms. Crable, you've accrued quite the record of wrongdoing in a short amount of time. Not only have you incorrectly ended meetings, you've violated people's basic civic rights, and in this last meeting, you verbally attacked a teacher at a meeting. At what point, I want to ask the board, should they keep you on as chair when it's apparent that you don't abide by the rules and you're continuing to exacerbate the problems? And not only that, you have no interest in doing further training to mitigate it.
Ms. Justice first, then Ms. Adams, please.
I would, and I apologize in every way possible to the teacher that was attacked last week. I'm so sorry. That is totally out of line. There are ways that we can talk about this as a board that we need to do. It happened last week, but this is something that I think it would be really good if the person that did the action went back and started looking at some of these school board meetings, because it's evident to the public and to myself that the decorum is definitely over the top. The treatment towards the public is definitely not appropriate, and some of the behavior might even be illegal if you want to look at what happened last week. So we as a board, we're not ignoring what's going on. It's just there's an awful lot going on right now, and a lot of stuff does need to happen behind the scenes because that's just appropriate. But if I was responsible for something like that, I would definitely be concerned about myself and reflect big time and talk to other board members.
Thank you, Ms. Justice. Ms. Adams, and then Mr. Wildebohr quickly.
I appreciate the question, but I will say this. We should not be the news story. And that, unfortunately, that continues to happen, and we need to do better as a board. And it's on multiple levels. So I wasn't at last Friday meeting that you're speaking about, but I do think that as a board, we are continuing to assess ourselves. We are continuing to look at where we can grow. And it's not one person, it's a board of 7, and no one here is perfect. And I think that we all have room to improve. So again, I think that there are members of this board that want to keep the attention on our schools and our students. That's why we ran, that's why we're here. If the articles and the stories keep being about us, frankly, it's embarrassing. And I don't want to be the story, I want it to be about our kids. That's why we're here.
Mr. Wildebohr, bring us home.
I'd just like to say, we do need to take a lot of steps in a positive way. One thing that I brought forward is the Robert's Rules of Order. Obviously, that's not going to fix the problem, but it is a positive step, and the 7-0 vote, in my mind, shows that we all realize that there are some problems on this board. As a principal, I always tried to lead my staff in a positive way and show them the positive way that we should be doing. And I think as a board, we should be doing the same thing. We should not be, a second grader should be able to come in here and look and say, look, they're getting along, they're working together. That's what we should be doing. And that's what I strive to do. But I think we all, and I'll say, I'm not perfect, Ms. Adams, I agree. I'm not perfect either. But we all need to try to do that. We need to show our staff, our principals, our teachers, our bus drivers, everyone, a positive group working together. We're not going to always agree, that's for sure. But at least we can be cognizant of that and try to be respectful.
Thank you. Back to this side of the room. Any hands? I'll make my way over. Back to the back here.
First off, we were hoping to get an answer from Ms. Crable on that one, but unfortunately she did not respond. In April 2019, a person by the name of Lynn Schumacher brought forward concerning allegations regarding a teacher predator. She had it narrowed down to just 2 potential teachers and reached out to you, Mr. Bollier, for help in flushing him out. Not only did you not contact law enforcement or initiate an investigation into this matter, you decided to dismiss it as merely a blind accusation. Months later, Peter Frank, now convicted pedophile, was arrested. You failed to do the right thing then, so why should the community trust you to do the right thing in the future?
Mr. Boyer.
Well, that is just not accurate. That email was brought forward. As soon as it was brought forward, actually it was sent first to the chair at the time, Ms. Sept. It was forwarded to me. Ms. Sept and I immediately went to, we had a meeting that very day with the former superintendent. We made him aware of that, and I urged, the information in the email was very, very, very light. The email that I received, it wasn't narrowed down to 2 people at all. It was simply a male middle school teacher, and I'd be happy to release that email. I would hate to do that, but if you're questioning whether or not I take these things seriously, I really don't know if I have another choice, but be happy to do that. And I urged in the strongest possible terms that individual immediately go to law enforcement, contact administration, give us something specific. That email is a public record. It can be found very easily by a Freedom of Information request. So you don't have to speculate. I would urge you to immediately go and submit the FOIA request and find out for yourselves what the truth is, because that is absolutely not accurate.
Any other responses on this particular matter before we move to the next question? Fair enough. Reset the clock, please.
Okay, I'm going to take some of the pressure off. I don't have an accusation. I have 2 questions regarding the budget. And the meeting last Friday, there's $550,000 that the county will have, the board will have to spend if you move the calendar. So there's a little pot of money, $550,000, okay? Because you guys are saying there's not enough money to pay the bus drivers. There's not enough money. There's not enough money. We hear that a lot. But I was looking, and do you know that you spend $550,000 to get the grass cut? $550,000. Ashley confirmed that to me earlier last week. We only pay $430, let's round it up to $450 for the SROs. So we pay more to cut the grass than we do to keep the kids safe. So how many times have you guys opened up the budget and looked at some of these expenses? You keep saying there's no money, but yet I can find some money, and I'm not even on the board.
So the specific question is opening up the budget to find...
Are you aware that you're spending $550,000 to cut the grass? And how come the disparity? I know that it went up $165,000 because the county said we're not going to pay part of that anymore. I realize that, but it still would have been, if you take that away, it was still high threes. That's a lot of money when you say you don't have any money to pay bus drivers. You don't have any money to pay for other things.
Ms. Justice.
Okay, wow. I went through that budget. Ms. Walker went through that budget. We brought a lot of issues up, and I hate to say this, we were ignored. Okay, as far as the $550,000, we have 46 facilities in this county. It's going to be very expensive, especially since the Parks Service did stop, we stopped sharing that. But as far as the bus drivers go, I don't disagree with you. You guys need to talk to the county commissioners. There's $300 million sitting in a bank that was promised us. She's over here shaking her head. I have the document that was signed that said public schools first. We have a state legislature. Where have you guys been the last 10, 20 years? Every year I've been fighting to try to get that legislature to pay attention to schools. Now suddenly some people care and are noticing that our schools have been cut drastically for the last 10 years. You know what? This is not an easy solution, but we do have resources. We're also one of the wealthiest counties in the state. We're at, I believe it's number 5 or something like that. It's an insanely amount of money we have in this county. So why are our schools being strangled as far as resources to help them grow? As I said, if you're concerned about the grass, what are we going to do, get volunteers to do it? 46 campuses? That's just not practical, and it's not cheap.
Mr. McManus, did you raise your hand?
But part of that equation is a real challenge, Ms. Bradford, because when we met as a board, we tried to get a raise for not only the bus drivers, obviously, but our teacher assistants, our cafeteria workers, our custodians, and some of our low-end maintenance. They're not specifically the top electrician and or carpenter. And we did not get that to fly. And so the grass problem was more than 46. We have 46 campuses, so to speak.
Stuff too.
We've got buildings galore. We've got football fields. We have acres.
Soccer.
And it is extremely expensive because they're doing it now. That should go down. I haven't looked at that by month. You may have. Obviously, grass will start growing a lot less now, but we have to cut the grass, and that's what we're having to pay. But I challenge you, if you get on the board, to find us people who'll cut it for less, but keep cutting it to keep it where it is.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Walker, please.
So I think I want to address the discussion on the change in the calendar would cost us $500,000. I don't think that is accurate. I think what they were talking about with a pot of money was being able to cover subs for teacher training and letters, which I believe when I looked at the new calendars, I think we would need to do that. So, and I think the discussion last week was also on spending that money on something else. What was it? What was it?
Programs, manipulative, a whole bunch of stuff.
Manipulative,
A whole lot of things that.
Yeah, so I know I pulled the budget apart. I tried to pull all the local funding out. I tried really hard to try and come up with some kind of compromise or a way we could spend money a little differently in order to get raises covered, but that didn't work, and the commissioners didn't want to hear it, so.
Okay, back to this side. I'm going to move this way, ma'am.
I'd like to go back to the topic of how y'all work together. Y'all have probably among the most unhealthy working relationships,
Yes,
and I think you all know it. Y'all's tone with each other, your body language with each other. Like most work environments, we don't get to choose our colleagues, but we do get to choose how we work with one another. And I would not be surprised that those you represent and that you are making decisions on behalf have low morale because y'all aren't willing to make the commitment to one another to be one leadership team. And until y'all make that commitment, it's not going to get better. And I would like to ask what each one of you individually are willing to do to be a more effective partner beyond your ideological differences so that you can work together on behalf of the schools, the staff, the students, and this community.
So let me pose the question to you in the interest of time. Is it fair if I go down the line and say, will you commit to, however you want to put it?
No, I don't think.
I would rather they say what they will commit to.
Okay.
So let's start down the line. Ms. Justice.
I will commit to doing absolutely everything that's best for our school system, honestly. By the way, there is no ideological problem. There is a couple people on this board I get along with, in fact, probably the majority of the board, very well. But there's a history here, and I wish this history would disappear. I can't go back 4 years and change my relationship with some people. That's very difficult. But I can work with them if they will work with me Sadly, what goes on behind the scenes is only a tip of the iceberg compared to what goes on behind the scenes as far as attacking other board members. And they need to stop it, and I wish it would. But unfortunately, I can't change that, but I will continue to work my best for what's best for the kids with people that are willing to.
Mr. McManus.
I applaud you for what you said, because you absolutely hit dead bullseye. My little saying is we don't play well together, but you said it extremely well. So I'm going to try to answer to the best of my ability. I have tried to be a mediator, so to speak, at times to get out of where we are and move on to something else. I think all of us try that at point. Our biggest problem is we want to live in the past as well as the present, which means that sometimes some of us will say and recall things that are negative that have nothing to do with where we are now, but with relationships. So to answer your question for me directly is I can't live with what happened last year. I haven't been here for 2 years as of December. But we've got to quit being curt, smart ass with each other, short, and respect, and get to the present. Agree?
And moving on down the line, I am going to ask for short, in this regard, short one sentence answers, please.
I
Ms.
know
Walker.
when I come here and when I got elected and when I ran, I wanted to come here for a purpose, and that was to serve the children of this county. Sometimes, unfortunately, in politics, not everyone's here for the same reason, and to me, that does frustrate me. But I promise you, when I come here every day, that I will do my best to work what's best for the county and the staff in this district.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Crable?
I will commit to answering the phone calls of anybody on the board that calls me. I will commit to answering their emails. And I will commit to not blocking anybody on this board's number. I will commit to talking it out with anybody that wants to talk it out. So those are my basics.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wildebohr.
Well, I think if our focus is in the right place, that is a good start. And I think we got to go back to, it's all about the children, the teachers, educating the children. And if we have that focus, then I think we can start. I think the bottom line is it's respect. I'm not going to sing because that'll scare y'all. But, we got to respect each other. And, how are we going to do that? Because we need to all, I preach every once in a while, and when I do, I use a mirror a lot of times. I say, look at your, I got to look at myself. Am I being respectful of my colleagues? Am I showing the staff for New Hanover County Schools a respectful person? Am I 100% there? No. But I think we all need to look at that. Are we respectful when we say something to someone else, as Mr. McManus said? Are we curt? Are we cutting each other off? Are we speaking over each other? Or are we doing it in a respectful manner for the students?
Thank you, sir. We're well over time. Ma'am, sir, quick, take us home.
I commit to not running again as part of it. I'm a domestic abuse survivor, and being on this board has put me into PTSD. And I'll be very honest with you. What you think you see is not the truth. So I will say that this has been the hardest 4 years of my life, and I have tried damn hard to bring this board together since day one. And I appreciate what you're saying because I agree with you, 100%.
And Mr. Boyer, please.
Yeah, thank you. I also agree. I will confess to at times being a cranky Yankee. I think for New Englanders, sarcasm is our native tongue. But what I will commit to is to maintain that perspective. And I do believe that every single person up here wants what's best for kids. And I will commit to working with the incoming board as best I can to facilitate a smooth transition if I'm not on it, because that's really important.
Okay, back to the middle, and then we'll go here, and then here, and we'll make our way around. Please.
I just have a question about last board meeting you were discussing athletic tickets. And if I understood correctly, I'm not going to deal with the requirement of trying to make everybody use plastic. That's not fair. But there was also the information given that there will be a 30% fee on all sold tickets. Visa charges 3 to 5% fee. Our sales tax is, I think, 7%. Where is that 30% coming from, and where is it going?
Ms. Justice.
Yeah, I'm actually the one that brought that up, and it is a big concern. I just actually put it out there, and boy, was I surprised at the response. It is very serious. It is a concern. A couple, that night when I brought up a couple, this is not trying to, I'm just saying, other board members didn't think it was important. I think it is important, is that we got to really listen to the public. And I am very concerned about that hefty. I actually went online and get more tickets last Friday because I can't do it any other way. And I saw it was $146 per student. It was $156. I have no idea what's going on with this usury fee almost, but it needs, and I do want to bring that up, put it on the agenda, hopefully next meeting, which I requested, and it was ignored. Listen, you guys, I want so hard to make this board work. I really do, but we've all got to work together, not fight each other. We've got to fight each other. I mean, we shouldn't fight each other. We got to work together. So hopefully that will be on the agenda next time, and the public will get a chance to have input and find out what the heck is all that money going to. That's a huge chunk.
Any other comments on tickets, or we'll buy back the time?
I would just like to add that this would be a good question to ask our staff. And so that is another thing that I think that I can commit to is before we start trashing our school system, let's go find out the answers about that. So I have a note to ask where the fees go, but probably back into each school's athletic budget.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I heard Judy talking about how we need to listen to our staff and our teachers and believe what they're saying. If you know me, you know I've been here for many years and I call to the audience a lot. Here's the issue, and it's going to end up in the question. Staff members, teachers, teacher assistants, bus drivers, when they come here and verbalize exactly what's going on, there is retaliation. I was retaliated against several times last year, to the point that it was one of the reasons I ended up with going to see a therapist, because it was that horrible. And then I had the threat of retaliation from various sources. The 7 of you who are sitting there, you guys are the ultimate. You approve the personnel reports every month. I think that we need to have more of our employees in here. You guys don't know because some of y'all don't go visit every school, and you need to. And so if the people are terrified, this year, they're being told again that they can't even come and attend meetings, let alone talk at them. And for retaliation, because they're also not allowed to talk to the media. And I guess that talking at a school board meeting is the same as talking to a media. What can you do as a board to get it to the people that you are an employee? We want to hear you. If it's a personal attack on on your administrator, no. But what can we do to get our employees here and make them welcome and not retaliated against?
Mr. Wildebohr, please.
Well, the first thing I think we need to do, and I have not done as good a job as I did last year as going to all the schools, but I do try to get to schools. I do walk around. The other day I went to Williston, and the principal was tied up, and I've been yelled at that, well, they don't want you there. Well, every place I've ever gone to, they're like, it's great to see you. We welcome you, this kind of thing. But the principal said to me, he said, I trust you. Go walk around and talk to teachers. And that's exactly what I did. Talk to teachers, meaning everyone. So I did. I walked down, I sat down with a couple of folks, talked to them, asked, So encourage those folks to talk to us when we do come around. Secondly, that's to me, that's horrific. I mean, they should be able to come here. Number one, they have the right to come here and speak. And I've been told I'm out of my lane more than once because I go and try to help a situation when it doesn't get taken care of at a lower level. I do always refer to the administration, but then sometimes I've had situations where I hear from parents that it's still not getting better, and then I get out of my lane. I guess I do, but it's the old principle in me that does that. But I would encourage them to just continue when they see one of us, email us, call us. I actually on my card I have my number, so it's not central office, and then it gets to me eventually. I pick it up.
Yep.
Come back. Mr. Boyer, please.
So all I can say in terms of that is, and all I can say for the public record is email, call. I do get a lot of emails. I do get a lot of teacher phone calls, teacher emails. Please come. You are welcome. It is absolutely not acceptable for anybody to tell an employee in this school district that they cannot contact the board. I don't have all the answers, and a lot of times the answers I'm going to give you is contact your principal. But you can at least ask me, where do I go to get this information? Absolutely, we welcome people. Come to the board. Nobody should ever be retaliated against in New Hanover County Schools.
Mr. McManus and then Mr. Walker, please.
Thank you for stating that, and that surprises me because I've never been told, I don't think that we reflect that we're not approachable. I hope not. Because you brought it up, I've well over 20 plus schools this year already I've visited, and I can give you the name of every one of them. You, a staff employee, has a right, and I'm not trying to open a Pandora's box, but I want to make sure people understand, to appeal anything that happens to you personnel-wise. Now, until we have closed sessions and discuss that, we don't know what's going on. That's all done in person closed session. So, but you have a right to appeal. And so hopefully if someone feels that they have been mistreated, maybe they need to consider to appeal.
Ms. Walker, very quickly, please.
Okay, quickly. So retaliation should not happen, intimidation should not happen. You have a right, you're a constituent, you should be able to come to meetings, and if it happens, please let us know.
And I otherwise wouldn't mention this, but I do just want to say the policy was updated several months ago. New Hanover County Schools is open to the media. No employee is restricted from talking to the media at any time. It's codified in policy. The board passed it several months ago. So I just want to make that point of clarification. I'm going to go back to the back and then come back up to the front.
Since every bit of research, including the data from our very own Safe Schools grant that New Hanover County Schools refuses to share, suggests that police officers, and hats for that matter, do nothing to secure our schools and nothing to reduce school violence. What plans are in place to build relationships with our students and community, which has been proven to result in safer school climate? And why does this district keep losing data? For example, with the sexual assaults, with the Safe Schools grant, where is this data that is always missing?
So the question is, where is missing data? Specifically to Safe Schools data.
Millions.
Ms. Justice, please.
Okay, and I pointed out before, this previous administrations, this has been going on for decades. That Safe Schools data was from a decade ago, and it's disappeared since then, and that was millions of dollars of a grant, and well done data. This is in the past. It's hard for us now to be able to, unless somebody finds it, to address that, the people that should be held accountable for losing it. But as of now, let's hope that from that experience and other experiences, that the current administration and other parts of the school system would not let these kinds of situations ever occur again. We need this kind of data to make good decisions, and if we don't have it, we can't.
Ms. Crable.
So I was a part of that task force back in 2007 when that occurred. And as the PTA council representative for the school system, I went back and looked through a lot of my notes just to see, if I had anything. And when you ask us where are they, if we had them, we would give them. But what I do want to say from my remembrance of what happened, and what came out of that, we are doing a lot of the things that were recommended out of that grant. That we have, we recognize that relationships were very important in the school, more adult relationships, and we have continued to do that over and over. One of the things that we've done, in that time frame too, is we've used outside agencies like Communities in Schools and Coastal Horizons and the New Hanover County Health and Human Services Department to bring us in more of adults. So those kind of things were addressed. And that's the main one because that's the one I latched onto. I can't remember specifically any of the other stuff, but I do know that we are using best practices from what came out of that.
Any other comments on the matter? Okay, who did I say? 1, 2, 3. I said 1. All right, can't reach you, but I'm going to need this back.
Hey,
I'm going to go with Mr. Wildebohr and Mrs. Adams. You guys were talking about schools and the kids. I'm going to stay with that for a second.
Ma'am, can you speak up just a
Sorry,
little bit,
I'm
please?
sorry. I have a 6th grade student at Noble Middle School. Wednesday of last week, he was called the N-word by a Caucasian little boy. That Friday, he got slapped by this Caucasian little boy. My son did let a teacher know that he was called the N-word, nothing was done. So I guess there is a student handbook policy for New Hanover County that doesn't seem to be followed. So I guess my question is, what is the policy on a student defending themselves and getting suspended? Because my son was told, well, I was told that he would have got suspended if he would have defended himself.
So can you repeat that question? I didn't get the question.
The policy, I'll let you say it again.
I said, what is the policy on a student defending themselves versus getting suspended? Because my son, well, I was told that my son would have gotten suspended if he would have retaliated against this little boy. No, this other no.
Mr. Wildebohr, then Ms. Craybill, please.
First off, I think that, using a racial slur is horrible, so I think that should have been addressed. Obviously, it wasn't you're saying, but it needed to be, because that probably would have stopped the whole problem before it even happened. The other piece, though, is if a child defends himself to the point to get away from a situation and go tell an adult, that's different. And I'm thinking back to my days as a principal. If two children get in a fight, that's one thing. That's a fight, and both children are typically punished for that situation. Hopefully, also are counseled so it doesn't continue. But if a child defends himself to the point and gets away, that's a different story, and that's a situation that they should be able to do, to defend themselves. They shouldn't have to sit there and be punched. But if two children are in a scuffle, that's a different situation. So can I don't know if I'm allowed to, but can I ask you that question? So you're saying they didn't get into a fight, or you were just told that?
My son got slapped. Basically, he got slapped. He didn't do anything, but this other little boy did not get in trouble.
He did?
He did not get suspended. My son did not get my son didn't do anything because he was scared he was going to get suspended.
I got you. Well, obviously, the other child, in my opinion, and I don't know all the facts, but from what you've told me, that other child should be in trouble for, number one, using a racial slur, and then also for assault, for assaulting your child.
Ms. Crable?
Yes, first of all, I'm sorry that happened to your child. There's nothing worse than having that happen to you. But I do have to say this, that the board members do not get involved in the student discipline process. That happens at the school level. And so I would love to hear more about this, but I don't want to jeopardize your right to appeal if there's anything that if there's more that comes out of this. But, and for us to sit here without knowing any of the details and offer up something other that's what's in our policy 3460 on student behavior would not be prudent of us to do that. So I would encourage you to go back to your school, and if that isn't working, then call up Dr. Faust, email him directly, or Julie Parks Barnum, or people in our student support services, because I don't want to jeopardize anything that you need to do what's right for your child.
Mr. Buller, last few seconds, please.
Thank you very much. Yeah, ma'am, I'm very sorry that you've had that experience. As to Ms. Crable's point, I don't want to get into specifics on student discipline at a school level, but what I will say is that this board has recognized these issues that exist in our society, and we have been proactive in trying to fix them. We have implicit bias training for all of our staff. We have a director of EDI. We have an EDI committee. So we do know that these things are out there. We do know that we need to work on these things, and we need to be better as a society, and I think the system has taken those proactive steps. But I'm terribly sorry that you had that.
Right.
Yeah. Hello. I'm Gail Major. A lot of you know me, child advocate. I'm currently with a volunteer organization called FACTS Task Force 2.0. I'm here today to let you know, which I think I did at one of your last meetings, that I'm now working with the legal people that are pro bono for the schools. And yes, thank you for smiling, Ms. Crable. That's very nice of you. We are starting, there was one in one county. We started with 3 counties here, New Hanover, Pender, and Brunswick. We are at really good stages of what we look at. I have spent almost 2 years documenting and researching wrongdoings, and it includes a lot of things that have been mentioned here today. And I'm very sorry. But I will tell you, I have a flyer here. We joined a group, and this is about books, and we can all argue about them if they're real or not. This is research-based. So you have an email, you can report anything you want. Confidentially, I am licensed as an elementary teacher, and I'm trained as a school administrator. You guys all know that too, and you know why I quit. The flyers are here. My card is also made up. The flyers tell you reporting school concerns. They don't let you write it, or they want you to speak, they want you to call. They do not want you to dare send an email, because that's the beginning of illegal documentation. So that's what I have. I have stacks and piles and a lot of wonderful volunteers here, some of them tonight. This community is done. And that includes Pender and Brunswick. We have child advocates there. We are growing across the state. PEP is the pavement education program. If you are concerned about the books that are in the schools, they're there. They're researched. Some of us were over them crying. They're so disgraceful. And they're in your schools. Screenshot and all. And there's hundreds. So the reporting that you have here, Ethics 360, told me those 103 books were what? Resolved. And they never even had time to look at them. So
I want to make sure you have opportunity to ask your question of the board.
The flyers are here. So will you support those in the community that have questions like this and bring it to your attention? Like the books that need looked at, like the severe SEL. I know SEL, I taught it. It's extremist teaching.
So will you support looking at books that are challenged?
I'll look at that.
Ms. Crable.
Yes, I support looking at books, and in fact, we do have a place online where you can report materials that as part of the curriculum or in our library. So that has been open. We've had several meetings where we discuss that. So, and you do it at the school level first, and then the district level next. And if there's something that is questionable, then we address it. But yes, I support having a parent have an opportunity to give input.
Mr. Boyer.
Yeah, I always support asking the question. I always support asking the question, see what the answer is. But, you know, a lot of times what is objectionable and not is subjective. And so I support the question, always ask the question, but I don't commit to getting rid of, you know, any book without having that question first.
Any other comments on this topic? We still have a lot of folks to get to, so I'd rather reset the clock if not. Ma'am.
I get to hold it? I hope you are familiar with the Leandro Plan. If the General Assembly were to honor our state constitution and fully fund the plan that has been upheld by the North Carolina Supreme Court, New Hanover County would receive as much as $57 million in additional funding by 2028. That money could provide more pre-K teachers, school counselors, social workers, teacher assistants, instructional materials, and professional development. Which of our state representatives are you working with to help bring that money to our district?
Which state representatives? Ms. Justice.
Well, at this point, it's in the courts. The highest court here in North Carolina State Court is looking, and it's a legal question. It's literally a fight between the legislature going on and the public schools and all the people representing it that wants that money released. So, you know, working with our local legislatures, which would be great, and which is something we should all be doing at all times, is going to be, we have to wait and see what happens in the next couple months, and hopefully from there, then we will be going working with legislatures. In the past, I think that we haven't worked well enough as far as pushing the needs that are out there, and so we should in the future make sure that that neglect doesn't happen again. We desperately need that money. A lot of other districts need it a heck of a lot more than we do because they're a lot poorer, and that would make such a difference in the lives of tens of thousands of students across the state, definitely here in New Hanover County, thousands.
Ms. Crable?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the folks in the audience, especially because a lot of you here are regulars, is that when I went to the law conference last year, I brought that back and brought that Leandro we needed to fund it. And our board drafted a resolution to our legislatures that said we were in support of funding it, even though we knew that we may not be eligible for some of the funds. So we are committed to that. And every time I get a chance to talk with any of our local legislators, I always talk about education and what they can do to help us with salaries and all the other different things.
Ms. Walker?
So, Leander's been out there for a very long time. As Ms. Justice said, it is in the courts right now, which is, obviously the equal parts of our government. There is resistance out there. I know at least some representatives, they're on the ballot right now that would definitely support Leandro. And I did go to the event that was put on. I saw Peter there and Rebecca as well. And I think the more knowledgeable we are about it, the better. And I think the community can help us with that. And I feel like we've had offers for that, as long as we know when the time is right to get that money, that we can get it.
Mr. Wildebohr, please.
Yeah, we also have added a committee, and that's their job, is to actually talk to the legislators, legislators, excuse me. I can't speak tonight, as I said. But I think we all need to reach out. The board needs to reach out, parents need to reach out to their elected officials at that level, because they can hear from the seven of us. As Ms. Crable said, we wrote a letter. That's one step. That's a very small step, but it is an important step. But I think we need to have everyone reach out, because yes, as Ms. Justice said, we need the money. I know I was a principal in Pender County. They need the money probably as much, if not more. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take the money. We should take the money and support the classrooms. As I've said many times, I think it's very, very vital to, we need to really support those classrooms in every way we can. That's where the rubber meets the road.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This is a question really for the policy committee. The policy committee was scheduled to review new policy recommendations from the North Carolina School Board Association for Policy 4302R, which you recall are the rules for the use of seclusion and restraint in schools. That was on September 13th. Unfortunately, they ran out of time before that policy was discussed. The recommendation of the School Board Association was to allow schools to continue to use seclusion rooms. So my question is our policy committee planning on bringing the School Board Association's new policy to the board, to you, as is, for a first reading at the appropriate time? Or will you be looking at adding language to Policy 4302 that includes that one critical sentence to ban the use of seclusion rooms beginning with the 2023-24 school year?
Mr. Boyer.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. Again, I am not committed, nor will I commit to anything until I hear from our SIT reports, our school improvement teams, with regards to their plans to put into place mitigating measures so that we can go ahead and take that step. The North Carolina School Boards Association provides us with updates to policies periodically throughout the year. Their recommendations are just that. They are recommendations. They are not binding. And when we hear, as I think we're going to do sometime in October, when we hear from the school improvement teams, and I get that answer to that critical question of, if a child is in crisis and is a serious threat to themselves, another student or staff, here's what we're going to do instead, then I will feel comfortable making that determination and bringing it forward for policy.
So board members, I do want to highlight, we have at least 5 questions in the queue and we're running out of time, so I'd like to buy back time if there's nothing further on these items moving forward to get around to everyone that we can. And folks, we're not going to get to everyone, but we're going to strive.
Please
So,
answer.
sir.
Will you request tonight that Ms. Varnum present complete and unedited data from each school on out-of-school suspensions, seclusion room use, and the use of restraint at the Tuesday, October 4th Board of Education meeting? That would give her 2 weeks to collect the data.
Ms. Crable.
We can talk about that at our agenda review meeting coming up, but Ms. Varnum has been consistent in giving us quarterly updates on that numbers, and so we really haven't gone into a quarter yet. We've only been in school 4 weeks, so this month might not be the appropriate time for that, but we'll certainly ask, and she's watching, so she's listening. But yeah, so we are accustomed to getting quarterly updates from her on that data.
And any other comments on that matter? Okay, it was right here. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I know everybody's just curious about the transportation issues that happened in North County, specifically yesterday on the 19th. Myself, thankfully, I am a stay-at-home mom. I'm able to do that because I showed up with no information that the transportation had been changed up for Monday morning. I showed up to my daughter's bus stop to see 7 children under the age of 10 waiting for a bus that was not scheduled to come. Their parents were not informed from the school. I understand that transportation is a separate issue and you guys can't tell me what the routes are. I get that there is a shortage of drivers, so they had to move the routes. I understand why they moved the routes. My issue is the fact that our school told me in the office that they found out from the transportation department that these routes were being changed on Friday. When I asked them why no children had anything sent home with them, why I did not receive an email, why I did not receive a text message or a phone call, nor the 7 children whose parents got phone calls saying they dropped them off at the school bus and they were absent from school. So I'm not sure how they felt. I didn't drop my kids off until 9:45 yesterday. Because I sat with these other 7 kids trying to figure out who their parents were, if I could call them. One of the 7, there were 9 kids, but I was responsible for 2. One of the 7 knew her dad's phone number. The father came and picked up his 2 kids and brought them to school. I had to call the sheriff's department yesterday to get somebody over there so I could leave. I spoke personally today with, I'm not going to say her name because she asked me not to, at the transportation, one of the routing specialists. And I asked her, I said, I was told by the school they received this on, what I was told on Friday, or excuse me, yesterday when I dropped the girls off, was that they received the information Friday afternoon, but it was too late for them to get any information to the students and get that information home. So when I called today, I was told by, I do have a question, I was told by the routing specialist that she sent an email personally with all the bus passes, which I believe she said were 131 or 42, I can't remember the exact, bus passes via email at 12:58 p.m. on Friday. She also sent an email at 12:57 to all the same people stating that she was sending the bus passes they needed to get out because the changes were happening on Monday. The school that I'm talking about specifically is Murrayville, and I know this also affected Trask and Laney. This email was sent to the principal, the assistant principal, the data manager, as well as the front desk office manager. So there's 4 administrators. I got an email on September 11th, which in case nobody remembers was a Sunday, to tell me about
Respectfully, ma'am, I'd like to get to the question.
Sorry. My question is, what can we do? Who do I need to talk to get communication from my school to tell me if my kid's going to be on the bus, to tell me, and this, again, this isn't the transportation issue. I get email, so I want to know who I talk to get this out. I was told that it was given too late to get information to the students, but the school's not out till 2:30. So they had an hour and a half to get this out or send a broad email. So who do we need to talk to so children are safe? Because everybody's talking about children's safety, but me having to call the sheriff on 7 kids under the age of 10 is not keeping our kids safe.
Ms. Adams.
Obviously, there was a drop in communication, and I'm sorry that happened. And it sounds like you've done a lot, which I appreciate that because you're trying to communicate the proper way through the correct channels to figure out how to fix it. What I will say is, I think when those situations occur, going directly to your school and communicating, I didn't get this information and this is the impact, and continuing to have those conversations because we can't fix it if we don't know. So that would be.
When I went to the school, and myself and I think the 6 other parents whose children I stayed with yesterday, we all went to the school, and we were all told the same thing, that they didn't get the information on time from, they're passing the link to the transportation, and that's enough, I have an issue with them too.
Ms. Justice, please.
Wow. One of the things we did talk about, we got around to about the climate and culture survey was the fact that communication is really bad in a lot of areas across this district. One of the main characteristics of leadership is being proactive. And this is one thing that's falling behind in all kinds of areas, but right now transportation is huge. Thank you for staying with those kids, but that's just one spot. This is happening all over the county. I have 2 kids in school, and if I said my kids ride the bus every day, and it is a nightmare. And I know Monday morning was a mess. They should have, and this is what they should have done, and they need to start doing, is be proactive. Before they send things out in the afternoon, they should know it's the afternoon what's going on in the schools. They should have delayed that a day. There's a lot, that's just one example. Yeah.
I get an email that my school, my husband, myself got email, phone call, text message to tell us that the school calendar was retiring.
No, I agree with you.
I don't care about that. But if my kid buses.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
If they can send out a mass email about Google Audience.
Yes, they.
Why can't they send out a mass email?
I totally agree. I agree. Yeah, I agree. So what happens is our leadership needs to look really close at whose job is what and address these issues. We have to be proactive and not wait. You're right, it's the school, it's transportation. I'm in the same shape you're in. And here's another thing. We got to fix this transportation situation. And the only way we're going to do it, and it doesn't take $35 an hour, is that we need to get that money for an emergency. And I think it's an emergency. Have you seen what's going on in this county, all around the county? These kids, 9:30, 10 o'clock, they're still waiting out in the streets.
Ms. Justice, I want to give opportunity for other board members.
I just wanted to say right now, email Eddie Anderson, eddie.anderson@nhcs.net. And if he is not already aware of your situation, he will be aware of it with your email, please. So please do that. And he's the head of it all in operation. So he should be able to address your issue, and he will know the specialist that you talk to, and they'll be able to work through what's going on. So that's what my advice would be to you.
Thank you, board members. We're getting tight. We're going to go speed rounds.
I was late because I was helping a family, and I feel like you guys should put me on the payroll because this family, and we talked about communication tonight, this family is Spanish speaking. When I asked Mom how she was getting information, if it was in English and in Spanish, and she said mostly English. Her son is in 4th grade. He has dyslexia. He is the brightest child I've met, and he is excelling with the specialized services that he's receiving, but he should be excelling in school, not having to go outside of school to get these services. So my question to you is, what is the policy for parents that need everything translated for them? She doesn't have an IEP that's in Spanish that she could advocate for her son fully. And so what is our policy in providing that to families?
Ms. Crable.
So we have a department that specifically looks into that. Maria Black is the, can you stand that way so I can see? Oh, thank you. Maria Black, is a supervisor over all of the schools that have parent liaisons. And so the parent liaison would be able to do that. Your principal would be able to do that. And then someone in communications department, Caleb Price, is our community engagement specialist and can help get you those, or point you in the right direction for those resources. So first stop is your school. Ask, and the parent needs to ask that they need that, and not just count on people going, ooh, maybe he needs. So just ask.
Any objection to move on to 2 final questions?
You want to go first?
Hi, I'm Rebecca Trammell, and I just want to say thank you for this forum and giving people a chance to be heard. And I want to thank the person at the end, who was unnamed, but who courageously shared her story, and the woman to my left who also shared hers. It is not easy to stand in a room of people and talk about something that happens that's so personal and painful. And sometimes that's all that needs to happen. That's the first step of what needs to happen. And the first step to solving a problem is to hearing about what the problem is. I've been at this for a long time, and I identify with you, Ms. Adams. I also have PTSD, and a lot of that comes from having hit this cinder block wall of trying to communicate, we need help, and what's changing. Because I'm here now, 4 years later, fighting the same thing. And so what I want to know, because you guys all know who I am, so I don't need to go into any of that, but like what I really want to know is, at one point, will we consider professional consequences for inaction in racially charged situations? And at what point are we going to develop a policy that protects children from racism?
That's a good one. Mr. Brewer. Thank you. So I think each discipline case that we have with an administrator or a teacher, that's going to be done on a school level or in a departmental level. With regards to when are we going to have the policies are there. The policies are there. Our policies are designed to protect our students from this type of unacceptable harassment, bullying, discrimination, and racism. They are there. And it's not New Hanover County, we put in some really cool policies. They exist at the state level, they exist at the federal level, and they need to be implemented fully, completely, and unequivocally. And if that's not happening, that's something we have to take up with our staff. But the policies, I want to be very clear, they exist, and they should be followed.
Ms. Walker.
Yeah, so the behavior is unacceptable right off the bat. It is. And if this is accurate, that we do have policies, and I'm sure that we do, then they should be dealt with at the school level. And if they're not, then there should be recourse for it. And, if that means, if you're not getting any kind of justice in the schools, you should let us know, because we can't know everything. And if we know, we can do better. But I know we do have an established equity office now, and I know that we do meet regularly. We're going to start meeting monthly again. That's just an aside, but we are trying to address some of the issues that are blatantly obvious in this district, and we should be addressing them. And as far as incident happened, I'm sorry this happened, and I wish that I'd have known about it. I don't know how many years ago it was, but 2018, sorry. I feel like that should never have happened to you, or anybody else that, and if it's not getting addressed, it's got to go to this principal, and if that's not happening, then of course it needs to go higher.
Ms. Justice?
Right, and I want to reiterate that even though somebody previously said that we shouldn't be able to hear about this, if these things are going on and nobody's getting a recourse, please do contact us, because that's our job. That's why we were put in this position, is if the schools themselves are not responding to these very needed areas that need to be addressed, then please feel free to contact us. That's why we were put here.
I just had a quick question/comment. I don't understand why the school district doesn't go ahead and front the cost of getting your CDL with your Class B endorsement. Other companies do it, and it helps improve the fact that you don't have bus drivers. And then why don't you just go ahead and contract those people out for X amount of years so you won't have a shortage? Otherwise, we're just going to be in the same situation a couple of years from now. That's all. I just want to understand, why don't we have that?
Mr. Wildewar, please.
Well, that's a great question, and that is a great step in the right direction, because We are. We're very, very short of bus drivers. I actually have a CDL, and it costs a lot of money to get a CDL. A lot of time, a lot of effort. So, and I'm just saying at the school levels that you can actually do that. At my school, we actually did that. We had a couple folks come in, and I said, I'll pay that out of my own pocket, or with school funds, because it is that important. A lot of people don't have that kind of money to be able to front it. So, I mean, I think that's a great idea. And I think something we need to look at, in the future, so we can get more bus drivers, so that they can. Number one, we need to pay them better, but number two, they don't have the money up front.
Thank you, Ms. Adams.
I've had this conversation with Mr. Anderson multiple times. As it is set up right now, we do get the cost on the back end, but you're right, it's expensive on the front end for them to go through the class and for them to take the CDL. And so I will say this, he's trying to be very creative. It is tough to find CDL drivers, and the reality is they can make a lot more money in other places. So in order to contract them for long-term use, we talked about, is it possible to partner with Wave Transit a couple years ago? Can you share drivers with those that are driving buses in the city? We've talked about, and I know that he's very much trying to be creative because it is tough to fill these positions. So it's definitely a good thought, Mr. Camardi, and definitely worth continued conversation around to see what the solutions could be.
Ms. Justice?
Okay, I'm beating a dead horse, but you guys, we've been contacting the county commissioners. If you want, there's money out there. Your voices, they're not, we're not having the dialogue we need to have it successful from their end. Maybe if you contact them and tell them we've got this money sitting here and our transportation system is in dire straits. Dire straits.
Okay, bye-bye. And this will be our last question of the evening. I apologize. We'll have this forum in the future, but ma'am, please.
I'm a taxpayer. My family does not use the school district. But this weekend, some stories were floating around, and last week, I help lead an after-school club at a couple of the high schools. And stories are floating around that students are identifying as rabbits, cats, thunderstorms, are 3 in particular. This weekend, it was shared that a dozen up to 20 kids at Ashley are identifying, it sounds mostly as animals. There are kids holding these kids that are identifying as animals on leashes and walking down the hall. It's also been shared that one of the girls who insists on being called a cat, some boy tried to engage with her and it didn't go well. Eventually the boy barked at her and the boy got suspended. Now, like I said, I'm a taxpayer. I help with a couple after-school clubs. But these stories getting out in the community, especially, the question was, if somebody's identifying as a thunderstorm, how do you communicate with them? Emergency broadcast system, what do you do? So these stories are getting out in the community, and it's insane. It sounds like the schools, the high schools, are insane asylums. And the kids are allowed to identify how they wish. There's also stories getting out that there's kitty litter in the bathrooms.
Oh.
So I guess my question is, you talk about safety. This is a mental health issue. What are these kids being exposed to?
Mr. Boyer.
Thank you. Yeah, there's no kitty litter in our bathrooms. That started in a district in Michigan. I don't know how people are. I honestly don't know. I don't know what kind of stories are out there. But what I can tell you is this: I don't really care. I don't care if people want to call themselves dogs, cats, rabbits. I just want them to be able to read, write, and go to school and get a good education. So,
Mr. McManus, bring us home.
If I didn't know you, I would say you made up a great story. This needs to be addressed by the board. Several things do. But this because I don't know the other side, but this needs to be addressed. That's the best answer I can give you right now.
Ms. Justice.
All right. I have taught kids for decades and worked with them. I have teenagers at home right now. I live in 2022. I have access to this, and so do the kids. There's a lot of stuff flying around out there. I am pretty in touch with what's going on here locally with our schools. If some kid brings some cat litter into a bathroom, well, that's because kids act like kids and act weird. As far as identifying with gender, I am living in 2022, and it's a much different time than 1990s, but this is the times we live in. If you want to address it as a board, that's absolutely fine, but I feel safe and comfortable that our children are fine in the schools, being kids, talking amongst themselves, saying stuff, being dramatic. Boy, are teenagers dramatic. And especially sticking to what they're finding on the internet. I'm serious. They're really addicted to this. I mean, their faces are like this, and they pass it on. That is on the internet, and they are talking about it. But right now, as far as, I think you're referring to gender, because you never really brought the word up. But that's, you know, that is linked to this. That's not part of our policies or anything else that we worry about stuff like this, because it is kids, and if you want to bring it up, you can do that later. But as far as getting all excitable about children pretending they're dogs and cats or whatever, that has been going on since the beginning of time. Now it is, now it is amplified, now, I'm in,
Man.
yes, they did. Okay, I'm not going to get into our, that's
All
not
right.
the point.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we're at time. I want to say, I appreciate your professionalism and your candor. Ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate your professionalism and candor
TikTok
tonight.
is
I think
scary.
we've proved that we can go 2 hours. Madam Chair, respectfully, I'll turn the meeting back over to you.
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Is there, with hearing no opposition, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. That was silly. You want to talk about it as a board?
I didn't do it.
So we were going to have to end the meeting with me throwing her out for the fifth time. It's like, what do you have people?
I don't know. I can't tell you. Kitty cat special.
We wore kitty cat headbands. You know, I didn't like kitty cats, but other of my friends. You know, I was a dog girl. Little kids, they're nothing like being unicorns. You know.
board member. Got an EDI, got an EDI director. And what have you done for students with disabilities? Ladies, the definition of bullying has your pictures, not mine. Let's just. Oh, really? Oh, really? Yes. Oh, my, I would love that. That's what I was just saying. Oh, she's a gas I never asked you.
Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen, out of respect for our support staff who has to close the building, if we could start making our way outside.
Step down. You've never run that. Resign. Resign. You checked out anyhow. Resign.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close the building down. If we can start making our way outside. Thank you so much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. Mr. McManus, good night, sir. Am I running for re-election? Am I running for re-election? Yeah, that's a good question. Okay.